Hey, what's up, guys? Max here. So we're in the middle of the day right now, so we can see all the lightnings out there. So you probably see me here, just me and all this all green screen right here. That's just kind of who I am. Well, not really who I am, but man, my face is kind of so different now. And okay, today I'm reading another chapter of the marks we make. So basically where we left off right now is that Keith and Lance are into this relationship, as a soulmate, and they kind of feel like they're recognizing, right across their arms, and they wrote them out on their arms, and then somebody replied into their arms and calling it what's a Mothman, and then he recognizes it and just start writing down every single time. So, start to feel like they're connecting to each other and they are their soulmates. So, let's get started reading chapter 4. See what happens. Man, my hair is so screwed up because I don't like this hairstyle. Really, probably I'm gonna have to wear my beanie for this. So, okay, feeling better now. But I'm just gonna wear a beanie right now for a bit because of my hair. I don't like my hairstyle now, but oh well. Let's get started. Chapter 4. Help us through. And you're sure you can't call up to work to join us? Pidge asked, eyeing him through narrowed eyes over the top of the counter. It's nearly taller than they are. Their arms are resting on top of it, folded so their chin can rest on their crossed forearms. They can barely reach. He's pretty sure they're standing on their toes, but he's not about to point it out. He swivels a little in his tall chair, one leg folded up under him, other foot pushing against the side of the desk as leverage. His arms are crossed over his chest as he meets his friend's gaze unflinchingly. It doesn't work that way, Pidge, he says finally. I can't call out of work when I'm already at work. Pidge huffs, blowing a few strands of their bangs upwards. You're no fun. He just shrugs. Work isn't meant to be fun. The employees here are always wandering around making sure no one's breaking anything. And there's no one stationed on the third floor. Can't you, convince someone to take your place while you watch us? Pidge asked, lifting their hands for just a moment to supply emphasizing quotation marks. The movement displays their forearms, and he sees hints of writing peeking out from where their hoodie sleeves are rolled up. A lot of writing, like paragraphs, made from a combination of Pidge's tiny chicken scratch and their soulmate's bigger looping script. His stomach clenches painfully, and he's not really sure if he's lucky or unfortunate that he missed lunch. Keith looks away, pretending like he's reading something on the computer screen in front of him. His palms itch, but he knows it's one that you won't go away, no matter how much he scratches, so he does his best to ignore it. Nope, sorry Pidge, he says, moving the mouse around and accidentally clicking on a couple of programs open, just to make it sound like he's actually doing something. He's lying, to be honest. He probably can find someone to cover the front desk, and he probably can convince his superior to let him watch the third floor while the Quidditch team is up there. His work is usually pretty chill like that. He doesn't know if he could get away with actually playing with them, but he knows Pidge just wants him there to hang out, which is exactly what Keith doesn't want to do. Specifically because that would mean spending an hour and a half staring at someone he definitely does not want to be staring at. He can feel Pidge's eyes on him, scrutinizing his face, so he does his best to keep his expression schooled into something bored and not neutral. Luckily, they never work at the campus gyms, so they have no idea how it works or how chill his bosses are. After what feels like forever, they finally sigh, and Keith tries not to visibly relax. Fine. But try not to make a habit of picking up shifts during practice times, okay? They then slouch, resting their chin on the counter and splaying their arms out toward him. I feel like I haven't seen you all week, they grumble, cheeks puffing out comically as they pout. He laughed if he didn't feel so guilty. It's just been a busy week, he says by way of explanation but nods. If only to put Pitch at ease. He already missed one quick practice on Saturday, claiming he was sick, and another on Tuesday, saying that he had to work, but actually binge watching Netflix and making an ass print on his couch. This time he had actually picked up a work shift when one of his coworkers had called out sick. It isn't his fault that it's right smack dab in the middle of their scheduled Quidditch practice. He ignores the looks he knows Pitch is giving him. Are you sure that you're alright? They ask after a few beats of silence. Why wouldn't I be? He asks, finally looking up from his computer to meet their eyes. He holds, grateful for his natural poker face, and raises an eyebrow. Pitch's eyes narrow. You've been acting weird since this weekend. I was sick. Usually you complain to me the whole time you're sick. In fact, you usually do so while denying that you're sick in the first place. Well, his eyes narrow slightly. I'm not that predictable. Yes, Keith, you are. They glare at each other for a minute. Several people trickling into the gym behind Pitch. The muffled sound of skidding shoes and shouts from the basketball court behind them fills the silence. Keith, Pitch says finally, voice flat and even. Pidge, he deadpans, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to answer me honestly. He doesn't say anything, but holds their gaze, lips pursing into a thin line. Thank God he's got practice keeping his face neutral because his heart is racing. How much does Pidge know? They've always been perceptive, especially when it comes to reading him. They've known each other for nearly 13 years. Picking up on his subtle tells is like second nature to them. He doesn't quite trust his voice, so it just gives him a barely perceptible nod. They take that as cue to continue. Do you hate Quidditch? Keith blinks, lips going slack. His brows relax. Only to pinch again. He opens his mouth, can't find his voice, and promptly closes it. He blinks again, like that will somehow help him make sense of Pitch's question. He finally comes up with a brilliant and eloquent, what? Pitch's frown deepens, slightly as they repeat, do you hate Quidditch? Alright, so he heard them right, and it certainly isn't what he had been expecting. His brows furrow as his frown mirrors Pitch's. No. And it doesn't. Really, he likes Quidditch. He thinks it's surprisingly fun, and the people there are great. Most of them, anyway. Pitch must hear and see the sincerity of his confusion because they sigh. Posture and expression relaxing. It only lasts for a second before their faces scrunched up again in a similar confusion. Then why are you avoiding Quidditch? I'm not. You are, and I know you're not avoiding me because you still hang out with me outside of Quidditch. But you missed 3 Quidditch practices now. And that's suspicious, Kogani. He rolls his eyes. You're looking too deep into this, Holt. Is it the people? No, I like your friends. I like the team, he says honestly. Unfortunately, Paige just frowns. Is it Lance? Paige sighs, filling the sound with as much exasperation as he can. That much, at least, isn't faked. Why do you always assume it's Lance? Because he's the only one on the team you've had a problem with. And I told you that we're cool now. We're sore friends. They raise an eyebrow, frown still in place. Sort of? He rolls his eyes, leaning back in his chair to cross his arms over his chest. Well, I'm not about to invite him out for drinks and go play pool in student union game room without you as a buffer. Deadpans. Then a little softer looking away, and attempting to force his eyes to focus on the computer screen. But yeah, we're sort of friends now. We're getting there. Or at least they were. Pitch is silent for a moment. He can feel them searching his face, so he grabs the mouse again and clicks around, aimlessly scrolling the event schedule for the 3 campus gyms. Then why are you avoiding him? Keith looks back to him startled. I'm not. He doesn't mean for it to come out as a question, but it does more for his believability than straight out denial, so he supposes it's fine. You didn't hang out with 2 of us Monday and Wednesday between classes. Friday you were there, but you looked I don't know. You were weird. I wasn't weird. You were. Keith sighs, lifting a hand to pinch the bridge of his nose as he squeezes his eyes shut. Hitch, this just has nothing to do with Lance. It does. I'm not avoiding him. He is. We're getting along. Sort of. I liked your friends. He does. I like Quidditch. He does. He opened his eyes, meeting Pidge's words gaze, and pointing at them in his hand. I'm not avoiding you or your friends. As I said before, it's just been busy week. Mostly true. I'm not used to... He waved his hand around vaguely. All of this. They searched his face for a moment longer before saying, body slumping, but much more relaxed. Alright, I'll believe you. Thank you. I just want you to have fun here, you know. It'd be great if all my friends could hang out and you get in on our game nights. Though you probably get your ass kicked. Probably, literally. Last night get kinda rough when we play, but you know, Pidge, Keith says, cutting them off, lips curling into a small smile at the edges. Pidge smiles ruefully. I just don't want you to be alone anymore, Keith. His small smirk widens, head tilted to the side. I'm not. You're making sure of that. Pidge is beaming, but before they can say anything else, a loud shout cuts them off. Pidge! His voice echoes off the high walls above the ceiling of the gym lobby, causing them both to turn toward the noise. Lance is bounding across the lobby, weaving his way through the tables set around, and mostly doing a good job of avoiding bumping into them. Mostly. He's carrying one of the Quidditch backpacks over one shoulder. At the sight of him, Keith's heart definitely does not lodge itself in his throat, and his breath definitely does not hitch. He's definitely not nervous because he has no reason to be. And speak of the devil, Pidge moans, and the devil will show up here. Keith finishes for them, and they exchange small smiles. Honk and Laura are pushing through the doors behind him, followed by several other people that Keith vaguely recognized from the team. They're all wearing hoodies or rain jackets, some only showing signs of drizzling, but others are soaked. It's been raining all day, so Pidge and Honk had made the call to have Quidditch practice in the gym instead of outside. Not that the rain is too much of a problem. They have been raining for a couple of days, and the fields they use are soaked and muddy. They have decided that practice outside won't be too productive. Pidge! Lance repeats, slightly less loud as he approached them. He stops at the turnstiles and digs around in his pockets for a student ID, declaring a soft aha when he finds it. He scans the ID, but it takes several tries for it to work. Then he somehow manages to get his pants, hoodie, and bag caught on various parts of the machine as he walks through. He and Pidge watch the struggle with mildly amused expressions and raised brows. God, this guy's an idiot. There's no possible way that he can't be Keith's. He doesn't even want to think it because it's not true. It can't be. It's not. Pidge, he says for the third time as he gets past the turnstiles and walks up to them. Agree with me that since we're inside, we should totally play dodgeball. Lance, Pidge says, crossing their arms over the chest. This is Quidditch practice. Yeah, and you know, dodging and throwing are like most of the game. Come on, it's fun and useful practice. Pidge sighs, but there's a fond smile there that they're trying to hide. We'll see, Lance. Yes! He thrusts a fist in the air in victory, and Keith can't help but stare at him. His hair is damp, sticking to his temples and flattening at the top. His hoodie is rolled up to his elbows, and there's the telltale signs of rain darkening the fabric on his shoulders and his chest. His face is lit up with a grin that raises his cheeks and gives his eyes a little squinty, crinkly look. His smile itself is blinding, white teeth a stark but beautiful contrast with his competition. But damn, his face is damn near flawless, with no blemishes or scars or anything. What the is up with that? His long, straight nose turns up a little at the end, and Keith will be damned before he admits that might be cute. Okay, so objectively, Lance is attractive, but he already knew that, did he? He'd already admitted that much. He never mentioned Lance's looks, just his personality. He's loud, obnoxious, attention-seeking, cocky, and confident in a way that grates on Keith's nerves. How the is someone like that supposed to be his soulmate? He's not Keith's type at all. Not that he really has a type. He's never really dated or fooled around with anyone. And he's never really noticed a pattern in the people he found attractive. But that's not the point. If he had a type, it sure as hell isn't Lance. Besides, Lance is nothing like his soulmate. His soulmate who writes kind, encouraging words on his wrist whenever he paints. His soulmate who sends him motions that are so soft and so fun. His soulmate is someone who was a calm and sturdy anchor in the chaos of his young life. There's no possible way that person is Lance. The universe might have made a mistake, or maybe he made a mistake. He had seen the painting from across the street through a window, and he could have been mistaken. Pitch did say it was a galaxy that could have been someone else, right? Doesn't mean it was Keats' base painting tattooed on Lance's skin. Life is full of coincidences, even ridiculous ones, and this has to be one of them. Life is a cruel sense of humor. Then Lance is suddenly turning to look at him, and he finds himself pinned by those dangerously blue eyes. Has he ever noticed they're blue? He can't remember. Doesn't matter anyway. They're blue now, and they're looking at him, squinting slightly as he raises one eyebrow, cocking his head to the side. Keith? You're supposed to be on this side of the desk, he says, crossing his arms over his chest. Keith just stares at him. I'm working, he deadpans. Again? That's what I said, Pitch grumbles. Keith, buddy, my dude, you work too much. For once, Lance is right. I know there's an insult in there, but I'm going to be gracious and say thank you. Your modesty knows no bounds. Anyway, back to Keith and why he's not practicing with us. Keith hiked him. One eyebrow raise. Didn't know you cared. At that, Lance scowls, though it looks more like a pout as his shoulders hunch. Yeah, you're part of the team, dude. Everyone likes you, and you're good and stuff, I guess. He scratches the back of his neck, looking away as he puts his other hand on his hip. Besides, you're the only one who can catch me when I snitch, so it's boring without you. Lance, shut up, Pitch. I just like a challenge. You even admitted Kate is good. I'm so proud of you. I said shut it, Pitch. He just stares at him, blinking in surprise. He doesn't really know what to say to that, so instead he just shrugs awkwardly and looks to the computer. Sorry guys. I'll try to make it next time. You better, Lance says, resting an elbow on the high counter between them and leaning on it. He's grinning again, and Keith can't quite bring himself to look at him. I'm holding you to that, Pitch says, but their eyes on the rest of the team filing through the turnstiles. Keith turns to watch as Hunk struggles, and we're trying. Keith turns to watch as Hunk struggles. We're trying to walk through with an armful of PVC pipe brooms. He ends up dropping most of them, and eventually settles on passing them over the machine to some of the other members before walking through himself. Allura has several other bags hanging off her arms and shoulders, and all of which Keith knows have various equipment and things. She walks up to him, smiling wildly as he shuffles the bags around. Karan is parking the car, but he has the rest of the brooms, she announces cheerfully, hair barely dampened by the rain. They all gather around in front of the front desk and chat with Pitch and Lance, but Keith isn't really listening. He's looking back and forth between all the equipment bags, just sports bags, and old backpacks. That plus the brooms makes it for an awkward experience to carry everything around, not to mention keeping track of it all. I'll probably have an old hockey bag you can use for all of that, he says, before he really thinks about it. Everyone stops talking, turns to look at him. It doesn't look like any of them really heard what he said. He probably mumbled. He squirms a little under all the attention. It's Lance that just speaks up, raising an eyebrow. What was that, dude? He vaguely gestures to everyone holding bags. I, probably have an old hickory bag you guys can use for, all that. A lot more blank stares. Pitch is the first to get what he's saying. Their face lights up, and they grin, bouncing the balls over their feet. Oh my god, seriously? That would be awesome! Everyone's attention is shifted to Pitch, who turns to look at them in return. A hockey bag would be perfect for carrying around everything. Those suckers are huge. Alora turns to Keith, smiling brilliantly. That would be amazing, Keith, she says, shrugging a shoulder a little with a small laugh. Heaven knows I'd be fine with not having to carry around all these bags anymore. Keith finds himself smiling. It's small, but definitely there. This group just brings it on him. He shrugs. I'll look for it when I get home. Pretty sure I used one when I moved up here. Pitch gives him a blank stare. Keith, your apartment is the size of a tin can. How can you not know if you have it? His smile fades, replaced by a small scowl. Cheryl helped me back, and there was a lot going on that day. I don't know what's here and what's back home. Alright, well, text me if and when you find it, Pitch says before turning back to the group and taking a few steps away to address them. While they give a little speech to explain how indoors practices work, Lance leans a little further onto the counter, but half turned to he can look like he's somewhat listening to Pitch. So, hockey? He asked, eyeing Keith side along with the light tilt to his lips. Yeah, he says with a shrug, crossing his arms over his chest and leaning back in his chair. He idly rotates back and forth and nudges his toe. My parents signed me up as a kid because they thought it'd be good for me. I liked it, so I stuck with it. Not anymore, though? He sounds honestly curious, and Keith isn't really sure how to feel about that. This is what friends do, right? Learn about each other? Ask innocent questions about interests? Lance is actually making an effort, and it's one that doesn't seem forced. A knot of guilt twists in his gut. Keith trusts again. I aged out of the rec leagues. Ah, he says, nodding. Then he turns his head more, giving Keith that cocky smirk that he hates so much. I was a soccer man myself, he says, putting his free hand to his chest, puffing it out slightly with an air that is just so full of himself and so incredibly Lance. That explains the ego and dramatics. He deadpans. Lance's eyes snap open, face scrunching up as he straightens and stares at Keith. His eyes search Keith's face like he's trying to solve a puzzle, lips curving down into a frown as his eyes narrow slightly. What's that supposed to mean? He asks slowly. Keith just smirks, a slight tilt to the corner of his lips, and shrugs non-committedly. Lance's shoulders slump as he turns to sag more over the counter, lips pursed into a pout even as he glares. He plants his eyebrow on the counter and points a finger at Keith. Now you listen here. But then he's jerked back and being dragged away. Pitch his hand in a firm hold at the back of the hoodie. Alright, Lance, let's go, they say with a short sigh. Pidge, I was in the middle of something, he protests, walking backwards. You can bug Keith later. We have practice now. Fine. He turns back around, lacing his fingers behind his head as he leans back while he walks. The whole gang starts up with the stairs, and Keith turns so he doesn't have to watch them go. He sighs loudly, slumping in his seat. Looked like fun. He turned to see one of his co-workers plopping herself down into the seat beside him. She's a year older than him, but she doesn't really look it. Her hair is pulled back into the same ponytail it always is. She doesn't wear makeup ever, and she's nearly always dressed in simple jeans and their work t-shirt with Student Recreation Center printed across the back. Overall, her usual laid-back look, coupled with the fact that she's completely ridiculous, gives her a very youthful appearance. But he's seen her stare down dudes in the weight room and shame people into obeying the rules. It's quite terrifying, actually. He shrugs. They're alright, she hums, half turned to watch them climb up the glass-covered stairwell. They're going to the third floor? Yup, the third floor is nothing but an indoor soccer area. but it's usually empty and it's a wide open space, perfect for an indoor Quidditch practice. What's all that equipment for? Quidditch? Her eyebrows go up at that, like from Harry Potter. Yeah, she lets out a low whistle, eyeing the stairs. Wow, that's cool. You on a team? Yeah. Why'd you pick up the shift then? If there's practice. He shrugs. Need the money. He doesn't, but she doesn't need to know that. She just nods. Gotcha. Hey, since you're here, minding settling a bet with me and my SM? Then she's leaning over the desk between them and shoving her forearm under his nose. Her arms are small, but there is clearly enough room for two dicks drawn in the thick black marker. The more vibrant one is clearly drawn by herself, and the other has slightly faded into a tattoo look of soul mark. He raises both eyebrows, blinks and sides his eyes to look at her. Those are dicks, she grins smiling. Why, yes, they are. Thanks for noticing. Alright, so, she points to hers. This is mine. You'll notice I went for a more natural look of an uncircumcised dick. It's very large. Thank you, she points to the other one. And this is my SM. It's, very hairy and veiny. She snorts, rolling her eyes. Yeah, he tries to go for more of an impressive realism that way, but I go for the girth. When Keith stares her completely at the lack of what to say, she just gives him a dark look, but there is a smile playing across her lips as he whispers. You can't ignore my girth, Keith. He snorts, feeling his lips twitch upward. So, did you have a question? Or was it just to showcase your art? Oh, right. Okay, so which one's better? Seriously? Dead serious. You guys are having a dick drawing contest? Yes. On your arms? Yes. Is this normal for you? All that? She laughs. Yeah, happens more often than you think. He usually starts it. He shakes her head. Your soulmate is a piece of work, Ginny. He sighs, a small smile on her face as she gazes at the horrendously detailed dicks on her arm. Yeah, he is. And there's that weird twist in Keith's chest skin. The same one that happens whenever he sees other people being so unfathomably happy with their soulmates. He doesn't get it. It's like they have no doubts, no hesitation. Like they just trust their SMs without a second thought. He knows Ginny's SM also goes to their school, even works in the gyms too. They met at a young age, only 15. They've been growing up together ever since, sharing their daily lives, all the while knowing that they're with their forever partner. He doesn't know how they don't see that as terrifying. He thinks of Lance, and that twist in his chest is back. He doesn't want to think about Lance. There's no way Lance can be his soulmate. A soulmate is supposed to be someone who has the potential to be your perfect match, your forever partner, and Keith is definitely not ready for that. The universe wouldn't pair him with someone he met so soon, right? Whatever mystical forces are at work within the human race, it has to know Keith better than that. It has to know that he's not ready for this. He must have made a mistake. It's not Lance. It can't be Lance. He pushes those thoughts aside and points to Jane's dick drawing. This one is definitely better. 10 out of 10. Ha! Suck it, Billy, she says, reaching across the desk for a pen. He watches as she adds a totally mark under the G written on her arm. There's also a B with tallies under it. So far, it looks like she's winning. He spends the rest of his shift discussing the technique of drawing realistic dicks with Ginny and actively avoiding pulling up the gym's camera feed on his computer to watch the Quidditch practice. Keith likes the sport Quidditch, and he doesn't hate everyone, including Lance. I mean, He's glad that he's part of the team, and that's what Lance says. And come on. I mean, it's quite better when you had that somebody a team or something like that, but you kind of get to the point that Lance and Keith are just, I mean, they're working along each other. Well, as far as the progress goes, and never saying the soulmates because it's good to think of the soulmates, and then all of a sudden Jeannie and her soulmark had this competition of just drawing some penises on their arms, and I just don't want to talk about it because I don't want to demonetize this video. Demonetization is gonna go against me and just get rid of this stupid video from saying penis. Okay, I should not. Let's move on. But seriously though, Keith wasn't ready for all this, because soulmate can be with someone's partner. It could be anywhere, or it could be right in front of you, and he wasn't ready for it. There's all to it, but there's gotta be more, right? It has to be. Has to be more. Are the shorts really necessary? Keith grumbles. Knuckles of one hand digging into his cheek, where his chin rests in his palm. He's sitting on a short hill on one side of the quad, overlooking the Quidditch pitch. Both elbows are resting on his bent knees, free hand dangling between them. Allura hums from where she's sitting next to him. Her long legs are stretched out in front of her, mostly bare and crossed at the ankles. She's leaning back on her hands behind her, head to the back and eyes closed against the sun. But at his words, she lifts her head to eye him, one delicate eyebrow raised. He doesn't look at her, and she follows his gaze to where he's glaring holes into Lance's back. Practice is set to start soon, and while all the equipment is out and the hoops are set up, he knows it's still going to be a little bit longer before Pigeon Hunk manages to wrangle everyone up and start Quidditch time and all that. Meanwhile, Lance has decided to play some kind of game with Hunk and Coran down by one set of hoops, and despite everything, Keith finds himself unable to resist glaring at him. He's just so loud and everything, but he screams for attention. Keith hates having attention on him. How though? They supposed to be soulmates. Oh, you mean Lance? Allura asked, watching the three of them play. Coran pegs Lance with a bludger, causing him to yell loudly and turn away from the hit. The bludger bounces off his lower back and back into Coran's paneling wing hand. Even at his distance, he can see the older man grinning and Lance pout. Yeah, Lance, Keith says, unable to keep the scowl out of his voice or off of his face. He waves his free hand around vaguely, lips twisting as he realizes he's going to have to actually say the words. Booty shorts really necessary? He sounds pained, and he knows it, but he can't help it. He is pained. He's forced to sit here, dealing with all of his own watching his world get rearranged. Meanwhile, Lance is just prancing around in his fucking booty shorts and laughing like he's having the time of his life, completely unaware that his soulmate is sitting right here. He'd probably be just as disappointed that his supposedly amazing SM is just Keith. He thinks about all the tender feelings that filter through his chest, all the kind messages, all the fond emotions, and all those came from Lance. He's still having a hard time putting those two things together. They just don't fit. How is he supposed to act normal around him again? How is he supposed to fit into his friend group now? How is this fair? It's not fair. Every time Keith thinks he has something good in life, it's taken away. He's worked really hard to get where he is, fought tooth and nail to climb out of the pit alive. had put him in, and the thought that maybe he could finally just live his life. But no, now his goddamn soulmate is here. Why can't he just have this one thing for himself? Why can't he just live? Why does he have to deal with this? Why him? What if he had ever done to deserve this? Or was it just the universe's favorite punching bag? He can't even tell his best friend about his problems because they're too close to the problem. Nothing about this is fair. Allura chuckles under her breath, leaning forward and pulling her knees up to wrap her arms around him. The movement draws him out of his thoughts, stopping his downward spiral from getting any worse. Well, I suppose it's my fault. Keith tears his eyes away from Lance to stare at her incredulously. You got him those shorts? She laughs again, waving at him. Oh no, those were a gift from Pitch, though I suppose I did help pick them out. She says, thoughtfully, tapping her chin with a finger. Then he shrugs, lowering her arms around her knees again, and gently rocking in place. She looks peaceful, at ease, and thoughtful, a picture of content, tranquility that is so completely opposite to how Keith is feeling. The booty shorts in general are my fault though, she considers as they both watch the three around by the hoops. Lance is having to resort to being absolutely ridiculous in order to get past Grant and Hunk's defenses. How? He asks because he stopped talking, and he doesn't want silence. He doesn't want to admit that he's curious. Our first year playing Quidditch, toward the end of the year, we went by a tournament at a nearby school. Lon said if we made it to the finals, he would wear booty shorts. It was half of the dare and half of a joke, I think, but he supposed call it his secret weapon. Supposedly, the enemy team would be so distracted by his man legs that we had to get the upper hand. I encouraged him and let him borrow an old pair of shorts I had lying around. Never got them back. Did it work? The secret weapon? At that, Allura raps, tossing her head back. The moment causes her to rock backwards, and she lets go of her legs with her hands back behind her, leaning back on them. She grins at Keith, a sparkle in her eye. Yeah, it surprisingly did. Afterwards, we took a team picture with the trophy where we all pulled our shorts up as high as they could go in honor of Lance's leg strategy. Keith can't help the small shadow smile that curves his lips. Can't help it. Laura's smile is infectious. He can barely remember a Pitch telling him this story a couple years ago, and that time he had found it funny. He had no idea at the time that the cause of that story would end up being his soulmate. It's significantly less funny now. Keith just hums in his acknowledgement because he's not sure what else to say. He's trying not to let Allura see all his raging internal conflict. He thinks his poker face is helping him out of the lot here, but his incessant staring might be a problem. Especially, he can't just look away, and the longer he looks, the angrier he feels. It's deep-seated and simmering and burning in his chest, and he can't quite shake it. To be fair, though, Allura continues, oblivious to his internal struggles. Her eyes are on a Quidditch pitch, looking over everyone gathered here. It is a significantly smaller turnout from the first couple practices, but these ones seem to be willing to stick around. The whole booty shorts thing is quite common among Quidditch players, she says, lifting up a leg and pointing her toe for emphasis. It's not just Lon's, at least he wears the short leggings under them. He grunts in agreement. And the knee-high socks? He asks. Iron Lance socks. They're blue and black strip, matching his blue booty shorts and the black legging shorts underneath. The white block letters stamped across his ass that read, Juicy, stand out in the stark contrast. He, Gimple Billy Pitch, bought them for him, probably as a gag gift. Plenty of sports use knee-high socks. she says, humming thoughtfully. Quidditch included. You should see some of the better teams that play at Worlds. They all have knee-high socks as part of their uniform. We've been talking about getting some of our team as well. Please don't, he groans, and Laura laughs. Two of them are dragged off the hill about 5 minutes later when Hunk calls the practice to order. They all gather in a loose circle at the center of the pitch, and Keith avoids looking at Lance in favor of staring at Pitch and Hunk. Unfortunately, Lance is directly across the circle from him, and it's hard to avoid his gaze completely. Keith can see him staring out of the corner of his eye. He crosses his arms over his chest and stubbornly refuses to give him the attention. It's Saturday, which means it's a scrimmage day. So instead of drills, they'll play at least one full game of Quidditch, possibly two depending on how long it runs. Corinne and Laura are chosen as team captains and take turns choosing people. Laura picks Lance, tossing him a blue penny when he skips up to her side. They high-five, exchanging grins, and they're both so bright that Keith has to look away. Corinne ends up choosing Keith for his team. He's not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing that he and Lance are on different teams. On one hand, he doesn't have to work with Lance. On the other, they end up facing off across the field, both lined up to get the quaffle in the first dash. He makes the mistake of making eye contact with Lance, only to have Lance shoot him a grin and a wink before kneeling above his broom. He internally groans, feeling the anger inside him stare as he lowers himself to the ground. He lifts his head and meets Lance's gaze again over the quaffle. Lance smirks, all cocky confidence, and Keith's eyes narrow, lips tugging into a small frown. The simmering irritation and agitation that's been boiling inside all day rumbles, making his muscles tense as he sets up in runner stance. Lance summons the universe. Why can't he ever have any goddamn control of his own life? His favorite party. He is mad, inexplicably and overwhelmingly mad. He's just so tired of everything, and he's tired of not having a target to lash out at. The universe and putting them together, the university accepting the application, Pidge and for making him promise and take an opportunity to learn more about his SM, Cheryl for not letting him back out of his decision, Lance for giving the opportunity to begin with, even if he had no idea that he had, himself for being this way, the universe for taking his mom away and leaving him to deal with it alone. And you know what? Lance, and his cocky ass grin. Keith is tired of it. It pisses him off. He is going to wipe that off his face. Broom's up! Pitch blows the whistle, and Keith rockets up the starting line like a bullet. His broom is gripped hard in his left hand as he charges full speed ahead. Toes of his clean digging out to the hard-packed dirt across from him. Lance is doing the same. They are sprinting straight for each other for the ball in some twisted game of chicken. It's a challenge. Keith knows it is. He is not about to back down. And if they run into each other and he hits ahead, hopefully he'll pass up and won't remember any of his SM business. Lance is fast, but Keith's faster. With a flare of self-satisfaction, he reaches the ball first. He's barely bent over in his effort to sprint, so it only needs to bend a little further to grab the ball, saying the silent thanks to the little bit of a sticky grip his sports gloves allow. He does it slow, and Lance is right in front of him. Part of him wants to hit Lance, given the excuse to physically take out some of his frustration, even if it's just mowing him down on the Quidditch pitch. He sees the moment Lance is confident, turns to fear, realizing that Keith isn't stopping. His eyes widen, mouth dropping open slightly, back straightening as he tries to slow, but Keith is right there. With a high-pitched yell, Lance instantly drops to the ground. It's a move that's fluid and without hesitation, and if Keith had been in his right mind, he might have been impressed. Instead, he just seamlessly leaps over Lance's falling form and charges down the field to the hoops. Hunk isn't the keeper. It's some new guy that stands frozen with wide eyes, obviously not expecting a chase to come charging so quickly for a 1v1. Keith easily scores, and the whistle blows to signal his goal. When he turns to jog back down the field, Lance is still on the ground, scowling at him. Keith gives him a smirk, feeling smug satisfaction singing in his veins. He's still pissed, but this is what he needed, a chance to physically get it all out and show up Lance in the process. Why had he been avoiding Quidditch practice? Unfortunately, the scrimmage only goes downhill from there. The teams are relatively balanced with the new and old players, and the blue team keeps pulling ahead. Keith wants to blame his fellow chasers for not carrying their weight. He wants to blame the beaters for not tagging Lance out when he skips down the field. He wants to blame the keeper for not blocking the shots. He wants to blame everyone else and ignore the fact that he's not exactly playing at his best right now. He's just charging down the field with a single-minded intensity that's easy to counter with everything else that happens in the game. If he's not taken out by an enemy beater, he's tackled by a chaser. At one point, Hunk pulls him aside and suggests he tries passing the ball. He says it kindly, like a friendly suggestion, and with no actual negativity. But Keith feels patronizing in a way, and a little ashamed, which only fuels his anger. He does, however, try to make an effort to pass. It's not his fault that his teammates suck at catching, and they fall further behind. Whenever Lance has the ball, that stupid, annoying, infuriating smirk graces his lips, complete with a playful intensity in his eyes that does things to Keith's insides. He hates it. He wants it to stop. So whenever Lance has the ball, he charges. Unlike the other new players, Keith isn't afraid of tackling. It's legal as long as he doesn't wrap, hit from behind, or go around the neck. Other than that, most things are okay. He takes this to heart as he does everything in his power to get the ball away from Lance. Unfortunately, the guy is slippery and way too practiced in this game. He can easily slip and twist and away from Keith, laughing as he does so and holding the ball far out of his reach. Keith grits his teeth, chasing him down the field in an attempt to keep him from scoring. But then he just passes to someone else and they score, and Keith doesn't have a reason to fight Lance anymore. So he's left scowling at Lance's stupid, cocky face. Despite his default smugness, Keith can see some other looks overcome his face when he thinks no one's looking. He can see the anger sparking beneath his calm exterior when Keith hits him particularly hard and needlessly shoves his shoulder with his own. He sees it in the way his brows furrow and lets burst into a small frown when Keith charges him. You can feel it in the way he shoves back against him. Good. Keith wants him mad. And if he's mad, it better justifies his own anger. And if they're both mad, they'll fight, and if they fight, there's no way they can be soulmates. Right? He pointedly ignores the other looks he catches on Lance's face. The worried glances, the way he bites his bottom lip, brows furrowing in a way that's definitely not anger. He ignores these softer looks and the guilt that churns beneath his frustration. At some point, Cram pulls him off the field to take a break. While he's drinking from a water bottle, the older man hands him a yellow husband. Keith eyes it for a moment before quirking a silent brow at him. Corinne only smiles. It's nearly time for a snitch to be released. Who's snitching? Keith glances past him, movement catching his eye. Lance is standing near the blue team. He's removed his penny and is busy stepping into his bright yellow snitch shorts, pulling them up over others. Keith's brow furrows. It's a little biased if he snitches. He doesn't mean for his voice to sound hostile, but there it is. Cran's grin dials back a fraction before glancing over his shoulder. Ah, well, I suppose under normal circumstances, it might be. It certainly isn't orthodox in the tournament setting. Here, however, it's perfectly fine. We're all part of the same team in the grand scheme of things. Looks back to him, that smile back in place. Besides, a snitch is never truly on any one team. A snitch's number one priority is not to be caught by anyone. It's a matter of pride, you see? Keith snorts, taking a headband from him and pushing it on, letting him push his bags back out of his face. They were just adding to his irritation anyway. Yeah, I can see that. Keith takes a broom that's handed to him, prepares himself to chase down Lance again. Once Pitch officially releases the snitch, Lance is bouncing next to them on the other side of the field, a grin plastered on his face as he obnoxiously stretches for show, waving and flexing, shooting finger guns to the audience that's gathered to watch them pay. Keith grins his teeth. Then a hand is on his shoulder, and Keith looks up to see Karan, leaning over him, eyeing Lance with his free hand on his hip. I know you're eager to prove your stuff again, but we must think strategy if we're to bring home victory. Keith blinks at him. What? Karan gives him a small, mischievous smile. If we can't catch him right away, we'll lose. We're too far down in points at the moment, and the stitch is only worth 30. So you want me to not catch him? He says slowly. It sounds ridiculous. Karan gives a small nod, tilting his head to the side thoughtfully. Well, in a matter of speaking, yes. At least not yet. We need you to guard the snitch. Guard him? Deadpans. Yes, hold up the others so they can't catch the snitch and end the game. They'll give us a chance to catch up in points. Then, I give you the signal. You turn on Lance and catch snitch. Keith grunts his acknowledgement. Karan pats his shoulder, nearly knocking Keith off balance with his enthusiasm, and steps away. Good luck! When Pitch announces when Snitch is released, the blue team seeker charges Lance across the field. Keith is a lot slower, not very happy about being on guard duty. By the time he gets there, Lance has already ripped the other seeker's broom out and forced him to go back to his hoops. Keith slows as he nears Lance, face twisted into a small frown. Lance automatically takes up a defensive stance, but eyes Keith curiously. When he doesn't do anything, he slowly relaxes, still wary, but standing straight with his hands on his hips. He smirks, tilting his head to the side. What's the matter, Mullet? Not going to charge me this time? He says it like he's teasing, but there's a hard customary edge there that makes Keith flinch. He looks away, lips pursed into a thin line. The blue seeker has touched his hoops and is jogging back into them. Karan put me on guard duty. He grumbles by way of an explanation. Ah, Lance says, fully relaxed now. The good old stall tactic. Too bad he couldn't score more points. Keith grins his teeth, ignoring the jab as he turns to face the other seeker. He crouches down, lowering his center of gravity as he puts himself between the seeker and Lance, and Keith fights him off, keeping a hand on his shoulder, arms still to keep him forced and pushing forward. It doesn't stop him trying, but every time he tries to lunge around him, Keith is there to block him. Lance happily hides by him, teasing the other seeker and making commentary to the audience. It's a lot tougher than Keith was hoping it would be, physically having to push up someone else to be fast enough to block him. But for the most part, he only has to put his body between them, and Lance will do half of the work. He even goes so far as to grab Keith by the shoulders and move him around, at least using him as a body block. Keith just clenches his jaw and tries to ignore it. Luckily, he only has to hold off the other seeker for as long as it takes for his own team's beater to tag him out. His team has a bludger control at the moment, so they can afford to keep someone stationed on the seeker play while the other tries to stop the enemy chasers from scoring. The blue team only has one bludger, which is currently dedicated to the quaffle play. The free beater is hovering over his team's second beater, but they haven't managed to snatch the ball from them yet. For the most part, Keith doesn't have to worry about being tagged out. When he is tagged out, Lance playfully slaps him on the shoulder and calls out after him. Hurry back, meat shield! Keith just sends him a glare before stomping back to his hoops. Overall, it's an annoying process of being forced into close proximity into Lance and having to deal with him, but being unable to actually deal with him. Why did he think Quidditch was a good idea again? Thankfully, his team is slowly catching up in points. He keeps a close eye on the score and ready for this to be done already. Psst. Hey, Keith noticed him. Watching the other seeker walk back to his hoops, it's obvious that he's getting tired and frustrated, and Keith wonders if they'll swap him out or just let him continue. Psst, Keith. Hey, Keith. If he ignores him long enough, maybe he'll stop talking. He wills the other seeker to hurry the fuck up and get back here, so he has an excuse to keep quiet. Keith! The voice is loud and right next to his ear. Keith jumps, whirling around with a scowl on his face, slapping his hand over his ear. What? He snaps. Lance takes a step back and hands up an innocent defense gesture. Whoa, dude. Chill. We're in the middle of the game, Lance. Doesn't mean to sound hostile, but there it is. He takes a deep breath and looks away, trying again and trying to keep his voice even. What is it? Pouty and grumpy, 'cause that's better than angry. Great. Are you mad at me? He can't say he wasn't expecting the question. What does catch him off guard, however, is just how small Lance sounds. It's almost shy, with layers of uncertainty and worry that is so vastly different from typical Lance that he used to. It's such a 180 from how he had been literally 30 seconds ago that Keith's head whips around to face him, eye wide and brow pinched. Lance's expression made his voice, and god damn it, that makes him feel like an ass. He feels his mouth open and it closed a couple of times. I needed to find the words as Lance just continued to stare at him, chewing on his bottom lip. Fuck. What am I? What? No! He finally managed to sputter, turning back across there. Am I... What? No! He finally manages to sputter, turning back around the increasingly uncomfortable eye contact. He focused on the other seeker approaching them, thankful for the distraction. Why would I be mad at you? Unfortunately, the seeker is tagged out by his teen beater before he can even get close. The guy groans, pulling his broom out and throwing up his hand in defeat as he turns around. Keith's eyes straighten. So much for that. I don't know, man. You just give off this feel, you know. Keith uses his free hand to pinch the bridge of his nose briefly and closes his eyes. No, Lance. I don't know. What the feel are you talking about? He really doesn't want to have this conversation, especially not here, and especially not now. But here he is, standing on the sidelines of the Quidditch pitch, having it. He's just grateful his teen's beater is too far away to hear them and currently distracted by the other beater pressing them for the ball. Feel that you've been straight up wanting me for days. He says it like it's no big deal, but Keith can hear the hurt beneath his words. Cut straight to his frustration and aim straight for the guilt he's been feeling beneath and twists a knife in it. I hadn't been avoiding you, he tries, but the lie feels heavy on his tongue. Do mollusks do this to everyone? What? Keith turns to look at him then, incredulous. Block out your ability to hear, because obviously you can't hear the bullshit from spewing from your mouth right now, he says, brows pinching as he crosses his arm over his chest, leaning his weight to one leg. Lance, listen, I don't know why you've been avoiding me. He breaks eye contact, gaze sweeping around the pitch without really focusing in. Lance, but I want to figure this out because I thought, he's gesturing now the vague and wild motion of his hands. Lance, he snaps, louder this time, but Lance still doesn't drop. We were like, you know, bonding or whatever. I thought we're kind of getting to friendship territory and everything. We are! Keith nearly shuts, throwing up his free hand in Spanish. He very nearly does the same with his other hand and drops his broom, but his fist is clenched too tight to drop it. Then why have you been avoiding? I hadn't been avoiding you! He doesn't care who can overhear them now. He's turned to face Lance. He doesn't know where the other seeker is, or the enemy beaters for that matter, but he doesn't care. Lance is looking at him with wide, skeptical eyes, searching his face as he chews on his goddamn lip again. His shoulders are hunched slightly, leaning away from Keith just a little. He groans slowly, the sound tread off into a sigh as he turns his hand down his face. It plows down to his side, and he stares at Lance, forcing him to meet his gaze. It's just been a very busy week, okay? Lance searches his face for a moment longer before he ventures. A little hesitant says, "So, you're not mad at me?" Keith clenches his jaw, resisting the urge to sigh again. "No," Rita. "I'm not mad at you. I have no reason to be mad at you. I'm just frustrated in general, okay?" He realizes just how true that statement is. He's not mad at Lance. Lance just happens to be the easiest target to take his frustration out on because he's at the heart of Keith's emotional chaos. But Lance doesn't know that. It's unfair of Keith to lash out at him. God damn it! Now it feels like a huge ass. What would Shira say if he saw him now? The thought of that disappointment is enough to put out the fire that's been burning beneath his skin. The guilt cuts through his frustration, sending ice through his veins to cool his anger. What would his mom think of him if she could see him now? If Lance really is his soulmate, he deserves someone better. Okay, Lance after a moment, sitting illustrator. So, we're friends? Keith sighs, shoulders slumping. Yeah. A small, lopsided smile curves Lance's lips, and his relief is almost palpable. We're cool? Yes. We're coolio? Lance? Okay, jeez. Don't get your panties in a twist. From across the field, he suddenly hears a loud piercing whistle. Not like Pidge's whistle, but the kind that's made from putting two fingers in your mouth and working some sort of magic to make a sound that carries. His head snaps up as the whistle fades to see Karan cupping his hands over his mouth to shout aloud, "Caw!" Even though they never actually talked about the signal Karan mentioned, Keith thinks it's pretty clear. Lance has half turned to look across the field, hands on his hips and a small frown on his lips, brows pinched just slightly. What the hell is he? Hey! He sees Keith move at the last moment, but he's not fast enough to stop him as Keith reaches around behind him and easily snatches the snitch, the Velcro making a very satisfying rip as Keith yanks it off his shorts. Lance jumps away, both hands going to his ass to cover the Velcro spot. He gapes at Keith, eyes wide as Pidge blows 3 long whistles to end the game. He sputters a few times before he can find his voice. Keith! That's no fair! You betrayed me! Keith just shrugs, tossing the snitch back to him, which he promises to catch. Life isn't fair, he says. And while there's a small smirk on his face, he feels his own words heavy in his chest. Even though that the feelings between them, Keith isn't really mad at him. It's just a busy week, and he was frustrated from all the weeks that from every single day and all week that he had been spending time, because he got work, he got coach practice, he got school. I mean, there's a lot of work into it, and I kind of understand his own feelings for it. So I could see his own feelings towards Lance, because he's not mad at Lance at all. He just doesn't. And Keith felt like he does it because he has a second thought about this, because he doesn't like it. But, you know, life isn't fair. And it works this way. What are you doing? Lance asks, prodding Keith's knee with his foot. Keith ignores him, which proves to be a mistake because Lance just nudges harder, making him sway back and forth. Keith, stop, Keith grunts, pushes Lance's foot away from him and scooting out of his reach. Lance scowled at him and he scowls back. Homework. Pidge snorts, but doesn't look up from their own computer screen. Yeah, like I believe that. Keith turns in his glare and stares until they finally lift their eyes to meet his gaze. They're sitting cross-legged, laptop on their lap, hunched over the keyboard like some kind of gremlin. Their expression is unamused, complete with bags under their eyes and a blank stare. can't tell they've been up late again, which would explain the large dark roast with a double espresso shot sitting next to him. Keith, you're an art major. What homework do you have on the computer? He persists. I'm in art history class too. Are you doing art history homework? No. They just raise an eyebrow, but they do it in such a way that it implies it takes far too much effort to do so. He hunches a little bit, looking down at his own screen. I'm doing research for a speech we have to do in public speaking. Something Lance should be doing. He added, tossing a glare at Lance away to get the attention off himself. But that's boring. Lance rolls his eyes. Flopping onto his back with his knees and bent and arms holding his Game Boy collar above his head. He continued to stare at him. You're just going to wait until the last minute and wing it, aren't you? Lance sends him a lopsided grin. Maybe? Pitch rolls their eyes, hunching a little more as they turn back to their computer screen. One of these days, those habits are going to bite you in the ass. Lance tilts his head up to look at Paige, smile widening. We'll see, but for now, my ass is bite-free. He groans, partially because he can't believe this guy is supposedly his soulmate, and partially because biting Lance's ass is really something he doesn't want to think about. No. He slumps further against the wall, pulling his knees up and resting his laptop more on his stomach so he can properly hide behind the screen. After a week of avoiding Lance, he figured he couldn't keep doing it without drawing suspicion to himself, so he's forcing himself to get back to the patterns he established in the first couple weeks of school. That includes hanging out with Pitch and Lance Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the student union coffee shop between classes. Luckily, their version of hanging out doesn't always consist of or require a lot of conversation. Usually, Lance is the most talkative, but he's currently too absorbed in his game. The couches in the corners of the coffee shop were taken, so instead of sitting at the table, they claimed the small stage on the far wall. It is not usually used during the day, but sometimes they have open mic nights and other events. Keith carefully chose a position with his back to the wall, and let the other two sit further out onto the stage until they formed a loose triangle. At this angle, neither of them can see his computer screen. He stares at his browser for a moment. That one that actually has tabs up for his speech research. The same one that's a complete cover right now, before swiping over to a secondary desktop. Here, he has a browser up with so many tabs that he can't really read the titles on them anymore. They all have to do with soulmates, soulmate history, soulmate theory, soulmate psychology, soulmate superstitions, anything and everything he can find about soulmates and soul bonds. To be honest, and most of it is stuff he already knows. It's stuff that everyone knows. He shuffled through the surface level things that everyone learns when they're young and has started diving deep into sources of anomalies and legends and theories. Anything that he can find that might give him a clue to whether or not he can, like, get a new soulmate. Not that there's anything wrong with Lance, it's just he's not for him. He doesn't really get how they can be perfect match. They butt heads far too often, and the dude grates on his nerves way more than he ever thinks a soulmate should. Sure, they occasionally get along, and yeah, he can be a fun guy sometimes, but there's so much uncertainty surrounding their dynamic. It's unstable, unreliable, spontaneities. How long would it take for them to crash and burn? Soulmates have the potential to be a perfect match, but that doesn't mean they're guaranteed to be, and his relationship with Lance is rocky, to say the least. He still thinks that maybe he made a mistake. He's clinging to that hope like it's the last breath of air before he's pulled under. He will give anything to just be wrong. For once in his life, he hopes he's wrong. Maybe if he, started calling his grandparents more, did more for Shiro, really showed Pitch how much he cares about them, community service, volunteer work, maybe if he just becomes a better person, he won't have to deal with this. Or maybe he can find a way to force amnesia so he doesn't have to remember the day he saw his galaxy tattooed across Land's skin. He'd give every he gave anything to just forget and to continue to live in a blissful state with just not knowing. It's just too soon. He never wanted to meet his soulmate this early in life. He was kind of hoping for them to meet later in life, like in their 30s when they were both older and more mature. He doesn't have any of his together yet. He's still trying to get his life back on track. Is he supposed to balance a soulmate on top of that? He just wants to go back to when he didn't know, and Lance was just one of Pidge's friends. When he was learning to get along with him for Pidge's sake. When he thought that, yeah, maybe they can be friends with time. When he was eager to fit into this new friend group. When he was starting to think that life might be fun and easy for him for once. Now that friend group has the person in life he was hoping to avoid for years to come. He'd give anything to just forget that little detail. He'd give anything to have it just go away. Sever his connection to Lance and just be normal friends. Hell, it's not the first time he's considered ways to sever his soulmate connection. He just has more motivation to do it now. What did the universe think it is anyway? Thinking it knows what's best for him, and that now and here and Lance are all good ideas. He's just so tired of all of the curveballs life likes to throw at him. At least Lance doesn't know, and he sure as isn't going to tell him anytime soon. So he still has time to figure things out. He's just not really sure what he needs to figure out. His head is a mess. Thoughts and emotions just kind of flying around without really sticking. He's a mess, and he knows it. And he's honestly surprised that no one has really noticed it yet. And just like that, his phone vibrates next to him, lighting up with Shear's name. He sighs. Speak of the fucking devil.
How's it going? Fine. Really? Yeah. You've been ignoring my messages for a week. And now I'm not. Are you ready to talk about it? About what? You know what? Nope. Sorry. The SM incident. We already talked about that. No, we didn't. You came over, ate half a pizza, and created a blanket nest on the floor that you didn't leave for the rest of the night. Your point? Every time I try to talk to you about it, you groan loudly and bury your face in the pillow. I talk, shouting and growling about how this isn't fair and why him, why now, and I want to punch him in the face, Shiro. Doesn't count. I don't see the problem here. Keith, you're going to need to face it eventually. Nope. So I have a completely unrelated question. Have you ever heard of an instance where someone broke their soul connection? No, not without, one of them dying. I was afraid you'd say that. Keith, please don't kill Lance. No promises. Come on. It can't be that bad. The universe did pair you guys up. After all, surely there's something there. Even if it's very deep, deep down. You don't know, Shiro. Yeah, you're right. You should introduce us. Oh, no. I promise I won't tell him, Keith. That's for you to do. Not me. He's probably not even my SM. I probably saw it wrong and jumped to conclusions. False alarm. Have you tested it? No. Keith.
Keith looks up from his phone, eyeing Lance over the top of his laptop. He's still lying on the stage, tip of his tongue poking out as he stares at his Game Boy. His eyes drift to his forearm, holding the game up above his head. It would be so easy to just take a pen and subtly write something, even just a line, and see if it appeared on him. It would be so easy, and then he would know for sure. His fingers tighten on his phone, throat constricting. As his breath suddenly becomes shallow, his palms itch with his deep burn that he knows is entirely in its head. He has his SM's daily pickup lines there, but soul marks hadn't been known to burn just by being close to a soulmate. Yet here He is. Skin burning like a brand as he stares at Lance. None of it's real, but it doesn't stop him from wanting to scratch, to rub his palms, until the feeling fades. He ignores it though. Maybe if he just ignores it, it'll go away. Maybe if he ignores his bond to Lance entirely, it'll eventually go away. His mind is whirling and his chest feels tight, and he suddenly feels a little too lightheaded. His vision dots at the edges, and the skin of his arms and legs prickle, feeling distant and not quite attached. He recognizes what's happening, and that just makes it worse because this is not the place to have a breakdown. Not in public, not in front of. Then Lance's grip on the Game Boy loosens enough for it to come crashing down onto his face. It happens suddenly, but Keith is staring, so he watches it all happen. The losing grip, the fall, the panic, and realization spreading across his features before he lets out a strangled yelp, hands scrambling. He turns his head at the last second, and the Game Boy hits him square on the cheek, cutting off his yelp and making a loud smack before clattering to the stage. He's frozen, hands up in the air, faces to the side, and eyes wide. Out of the corner of his eye, he can see Pidge is staring too. Lance makes slow eye contact with both of them, and then all at once, the moment is shattered and he and Pidge are laughing. It bubbles up out of his throat unbidden, shaking his frame so much that he has to grab his laptop to keep it from sliding off. He throws a hand over his face, eyes squeezed shut as he feels moisture gathering there. He laughs until his stomach hurts, and he can hear Pidge echoing him throughout it all. By the time their laughter dies down, Lance has rolled onto his stomach, pouting as he grumbles under his breath, and tilting his Game Boy just right to catch the light. He refuses to look at either of them. He and Pidge share amused looks and wide grins, and it takes him a moment to realize that the tight feeling in his chest is gone, and he feels solidly back in his own body and his right mind. When Pidge looks back to their computer, he turns back to his cell phone, smile fading as he looks at his conversation with Shiro. He slouches further down against the wall.
I'm not ready, Shiro. Don't push me to do it. Alright. I get it. Need time. But at least let me meet him. I promise I'll be in my best behavior. GFC, you sound like a dad trying to meet his kids SM. Can you not? Well, I am family. It's my duty and my right. So? Shiro, no. That would be way too obvious. WTF? Just invite him over sometime when I'm there. Did you hit your head recently? I can pick you up from your class with him. No. I'll come to Quidditch practice. I did promise to come with pom-poms and air horns. So you can embarrass me? Let me repeat. No. What if I just come to play? As hilarious as that would be to watch? No. I'm not introducing you to Lance. Fine. I won't meddle. Thank God. Too much. I hate you. Don't. Stop. I love you, baby bro. Why are you like this? Seriously though, Keith. I still don't see the problem here. I'm not explaining it again. You didn't really explain it the first time. Question. Shoot. If I change my personality and interest enough, would it make a difference? If I become a completely new person, there's no way we can be chosen for each other, right? I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. What if I move out to the desert and never write on my skin again? Problem solved. Keith, too drastic? A little. I'll think of something. How about you take a breather and come over for movie night? Broadly bonding and all that, like all times. So you can trap me and grill me with questions? Thanks, but no thanks. Keith, I will never take advantage of you like that. Yeah, sure. Besides, I told Pitch I'd go with them to this coffee shop later after classes. Coffee shop? Yeah, it's called Local Lion or something. Apparently, it's co-owned by two of the Quidditch members. Hunk and Lance work there too. Pidge said we can get discounts, and Hunk wants me to try his donuts. Lance works there? Uh, yeah. At a public coffee shop where people go to casually sit and drink coffee? A place where it would be totally normal for you to take your older brother without suspicion? No. Don't. Disowned. You can't disown me. I just did. Keith, look. I really don't believe he can be that bad of a guy. You were even getting along with him before you learned about the whole SM thing, right? I guess. So, there's been progress, right? Look, I don't have to meet him yet, but maybe I can help you find some peace with all of this. Like, maybe if someone else knew him and knew he's your SM, it would help take some of your weight off your shoulders. Give you someone to talk or rant to when you need it. Fine, but not yet. I can live with that. Just try to calm down and not stress yourself too much about this, okay? Okay. Remember, patience. You're seriously going to make me do this over text? Come on, Keith. Patience yields focus. Thank you. Now take that to heart. Yeah? Yeah.
He felt that he wasn't ready to mingle, to have the moments of, to have the moment when you're with the soulmate. And that's what Keith felt like, and he was just had that emotions. And Lance has always been there with Keith for whatever Keith has a bad feeling, or in a bad mood, or in a worse mood. If Keith is in a bad mood, Lance will take care of him to calm down his nerves and the feelings of it. It's just the soulmate might be a strong word for it, but Keith doesn't feel like he's ready to commit. That he wants to be his soulmate, and that's one of your soulmate dies and it doesn't work, and you can't be with somebody because you need to have a partner. You have to have your soulmate, just somebody who's going to be your next husband or your next wife, depending on your sexual orientation. But really, I mean, your soulmate's very important, and that's what Keith is confusing about. So we might see. He's about halfway through season 7 of the X-Files and attempting to make scrambled eggs when he feels the telltale tingle on his arm. Keith squeezes his eyes shut, letting out a stuttering breath as he puts the spatula down with shaky hands. He turns then, sinking down to the floor and resting his back against the cupboards while he pulls his knees to his chest, arms hanging loose at his sides, head tilted back against the cupboard door, and eyes shut. He lets the feeling of his soul connection wash over him. The emotions he gets from his soulmate are exactly what he was expecting, but that doesn't make it any easier. He's not great at putting names to the emotions that come through his soul connection. But if he had to, he'd say that worry is the most prominent thing he's feeling. A thin chaos of sickeningly worried emotions with an underlying fondness and helplessness come filtering to his chest, wrapping around his heart and constricting, making his lungs feel heavy. His limbs feel like lead. There's nothing pleasant about the emotions that slither through his chest, leaving a cold train behind them. But they do mirror his own, so closely that it's hard to tell the two apart. He's not sure what's his and what's his soulmate's. Together they combine into something far more powerful and far harder to ignore than when he had just been on his own. They mix and churn and ooze through him, leaving him short of breath and feeling nauseous. All the while, a tingle in his arm traces whatever words his soulmate is writing. A touch that's not quite painful and not quite ticklish, just something that is foreign and strange, but at this point so familiar. A phantom pen swirling across his skin. It could have lasted more than a few seconds, but it feels like hours. Then the tingling fades and the foreign emotions slip from him, leaving him feeling oddly empty. The overwhelming guilt that remains, twisting and coiling in his gut and constricting his throat, yeah, that's all his. He spent several more minutes on the floor, eyes closed, trying to regulate his breathing and his heartbeat into something that might be considered normal. He can't fight off his curiosity for long, though. It gnaws at his mind, even as dread claws up his spine. He knows he has to look. He always has to look. It's some kind of primal instinct to look at soul marks, and it's one he's never been able to fight. He might as well get it over with, like ripping off a band-aid. He lifts his left arm, holding it in front of him while he takes a deep breath. Then he opens his eyes, gaze instantly, fixing on the words tattooed here in a familiar handwriting. Lance's handwriting. You okay, Space Cadet? Yup, there's that guilt again, solidifying into something tangible that settles heavily in his stomach. He had known it would only be a matter of time before his soulmate. Before Lance realized something was wrong, he had been hoping that if he just ignored the problem, it would go away. He should have known. On some level, he did know. His SM has always been the one to question, whenever he had been silent for too long. Lance has always noticed when he's been quiet for too long. He's still trying to wrap his head around that, around the fact that the guy he's been connected to for years is Lance. The guy with the cocky smile and self-assured attitude just doesn't click well with the guy with the soft, fond emotions who's given him years of encouragement and support. He just can't force them to be one person in his mind. There is a disconnect there between the images he has of the two, and can't quite get them to line up properly, which makes this so much harder to accept. Part of it is still hoping beyond hope that this has all been some sort of crazy misunderstanding. He knows deep in his gut that it isn't true, but that doesn't stop ember of hope from burning. And it's not that he has anything against Lance. Lance is fine. He just... There have been so many things he hasn't had control over in his life, and being connected to his soulmate is a huge factor in his life that he never asked for. He always took solace in the fact that he didn't have to pursue his soulmate if he didn't want to. He could hang back, wait for them to meet naturally, not rush into things. He was ready to wait. He wanted to wait. He wanted to wait until he had a firm grasp on his life, until he felt like he actually had his shit together, and he had kind of been banking on the fact that the universe would know this about him, grant him this one thing, and give him a soulmate he wouldn't meet until later in life. And yeah, he had made the decision to see the guy, to discover who he is, and still blames Pidge and Shiro for that, but he had thought that by doing so in secret, he would have the upper hand. He had thought that if he knew who his soulmate is, he could take the whole thing at his own pace. He could avoid him when he needed to, and maybe slowly learn more about him. See what kind of guy he was before he ever knew who Keith is. The easiness of that plan had been shattered the moment he realized his soulmate is Lance McLean. can't run from his soulmate. He can't hide when he needs space. If his soulmate is part of his new group of friends, a group of friends that he's really started to like, a group of friends that he really wants to call his own, he had thought learning about his soulmate will give him the upper hand. Instead, he feels like he's had more control ripped from his grasp, leaving him staggering and unbalanced, perched on an edge and ready to fall. His only saving grace is that Lance doesn't know. He knows he's technically still does have the upper hand. He knows this, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like it. He's going to be forced to hang out with his soulmate and pretend like nothing is wrong, like nothing is bothering him, like he doesn't know that the universe decided he and Lance will be a good match. It doesn't have that he doesn't feel anything for Lance. He knows that not all soulmates experience love at first sight. In fact, he's always believed the whole idea is a myth, something that people think they experience because they love the idea of it. He never thought he'd feel it. He always assumed he wouldn't, but that doesn't stop the disappointment he feels that he hadn't. He barely gets a warning before the tingle in his back and more words start to crawl out underneath the previous ones. He tenses, eyes wide as he stares at his arm, bracing himself for the same swirling cocktail of worried emotions that hit him, swelling in his chest with renewed vigor and answering his own. You haven't painted in a while, and I'm just worried. There's a pause, and Keith thinks he has time to breathe, but the feelings have barely fled before they swell once more, briefly, as a few more words appear. I'm here, if you need me. Keith groans loudly, dropping his arms to his knees and forehead, dropping to bury his face on them. He squeezes his eyes shut, willing the chaos insert him to just settle. He never asked for this. He never wanted it to be this way. It would be so much easier if it was just different. If he just felt differently. He's making such a big problem out of nothing. But the fact remains that he is like this. And it does feel like this. And that just makes him feel guiltier. Life isn't fair. Life has never been fair to him. But life isn't fair to Lance either. Because if Lance really is his soulmate, the kind, caring, patient person Keith's been connected to since he was 13, then well, Lance McLean deserves someone better. Someone to appreciate him in a way Keith isn't sure he can. God, why is he like this? He stays like that, wallowing in self-pity and hatred until he smells burning. Leaping to his feet, he quickly grabs the handle of the pan and pulls his burning eggs off the burner. He stares down at them for a moment, decides he's not really hungry anyway, and tosses the pan into the sink. He'll eat later, maybe. If the knot in his stomach ever loosens, he turns off the burner as he leaves the kitchen. He grabs the hoodie and pulls it on, if only to hide his arm and the worried words that are tattooed there, before flopping face first onto the couch. He's somewhere in season 8 when he hears a knock at the door. He ignores it, but it doesn't go away. It only gets louder and more incessant. Keith turns his head so his face is buried in the couch cushion and groans loudly. Keith! Shiro's voice comes muffled through the door. He groans again. Of course it's Shiro. He's been ignoring his texts and calls for the past couple of days. Even now, his phone is somewhere on his bed, where he had tossed it after Shiro's third call since he woke up. Keith, I know you're in there. No, I'm not, he says, loud enough to be heard despite being muffled by the couch. Keith, go away, Shiro. No, open the door. Maybe if he just continues to lay here, face down on the couch, he'll eventually be absorbed by it. If he's one with the couch, he can't be expected to do things like hang out with his friends, or talk to his brother, or have a soulmate. It doesn't take long after that for him to hear the telltale rattle of a key being inserted into the lock. Why did he ever think it was a good idea to give Shiro a key to his apartment? The door swings open, but Keith doesn't lift his head. Instead, he rolls it to the side so he can stare at the TV again. The door closes. There's shuffling, and soon Shiro is blocking his view of the TV, standing in front of it with his arms over his chest. Keith doesn't look up at him. He just stares blankly, like maybe if he tries hard enough, he can see the right through his abdomen and continue to watch the show. It doesn't matter how much you ignore me, I'm not going to disappear. You're still hoping, he mumbles. He sighs again, shoulders slumping. Why aren't you wearing pants? Keith just... You haven't got even dressed today. It's not a question. Keith folds his arms under his head, all the better to bury his face in the folds of his sleeves. I put on a hoodie, he mumbles. That doesn't count when you're not wearing pants. I don't need pants, but I don't plan on going out. That's kind of what I'm here about. No. When was the last time you left your apartment? He has to think about that one. 2 days ago. Shiro raises an eyebrow in that surprise and gently judges away, and Keith scowls. You hadn't been to class in 2 days? Maybe. Keith, don't. You worked really hard to get there. Don't throw it away by missing classes. He groans loudly, because he knows, and he knows he's being ridiculous. But goddammit, sometimes he just needs some time to himself. It's not like he's been able to work through his like he normally does. Just the thought of seeing Lance with his paintings, well, it's the root of his problems, so painting doesn't really seem like a good outlet. He shoved his paints and markers away from the time being. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Too bad he can't get his thoughts and emotions in order because he can't paint. Leave me alone, Shiro, he grumbles. Burn his face in his arms. He hears Shiro moving, and then suddenly he's sitting on him. He lets a grunt of annoyance, but doesn't move otherwise. You're fat, he grumbles into his sleeves. Shiro's heavy and it's uncomfortable, but he can't quite bring himself to care. Shiro hums, but doesn't reply right away. Keith can practically feel him looking around his apartment, taking in the mess that's built up over the past couple of weeks. He hasn't done the dishes in a while, or taken out trash, or done laundry, or really picked up after himself at all. When was the last time you made food? An hour or two ago? Why does it smell burnt here? Because I burned it. Did you eat it? No. And I sigh. When was the last time you ate something that wasn't junk food? Yesterday. When yesterday? Morning. God damn it, Keith! There's movement. In his winged bed, Shiro is pinching the bridge of his nose, the way he does when he's tired of it. It's a gesture he's seen a lot over the years. Last time you showered? Last night, he grunts. I'm not completely hopeless, you know. Could've fooled me. I don't need your sass, Shiro. Look, you know I don't like to tell you what to do. Could've fooled me. Shiro starts. Now, who's the sassy one? My point is, the sooner you stop moping around, the better. I'm not moping. After years of knowing you, I'm pretty sure I can tell when you're moping. It's because you're nosy. It's because I care. Can you go care somewhere else? Nope, he says, popping the pea. Then there's sudden movement, and Shiro shifts off of him, wedging his ass in space between Keith and the back of the couch. Then he starts shoving. When he realizes what he's doing, he tries to fight back, but Shiro is stronger and has the upper hand. He manages to get his feet on Keith's side and promptly shoves him off the couch and onto the floor. Shiro, he whines, lying on his back on the floor, staring at the ceiling. Shiro sits cross-legged on the couch, arms crossed over his chest, and leans over the edge into Keith's vision. He glares at him, but Shiro only smiles in small victory. Up you go. I'm getting you out of your apartment. No. Yes. Now go shower and put some pants on. Why are you doing this? he groans, sitting up and running a hand through his hair. He had said he had taken a shower last night, but it might have been a little longer than that. Like, maybe a couple of days, but his hair isn't that bad. He can't probably wait until tonight or tomorrow. You weren't responding to me, so I had to go to pitch, Keith says slightly. Shiro continues. They told me you hadn't been to your classes in a few days. Just 2. And honestly, I'm tired of you moping around. No, you are moping around. This isn't the end of the world, Keith. He makes a loud whine, but Shiro ignores him. Plenty of people would love to know who their soulmate is, and I know you're not ready to tell them. But the beauty of it is that you don't need to. You can't keep this secret as long as you feel you need to, but I'm not going to let you mope about it anymore. You're going to have to learn to live with it. Shiro puts a foot to his shoulder and nudges him. When he speaks again, his voice is a lot softer and kinder. Now get up, go take a shower, and put pants on. We're going out. I don't need a shower, he grumbles, but he gets to his feet anyway. Shiro watches him as he shuffles across the room to where his clothes are piled up and starts digging through them, looking for a decently clean pair of pants. Maybe Shiro's right. He wouldn't mind getting some fresh air. He doesn't think it'll help all that much, but he's willing to give it a try. He just wants to feel like himself again. Where are we going? We're going to that coffee shop Lance works at. Keith freezes, heart suddenly in his throat as it whips around so fast he nearly loses balance when his foot slips on the pile of laundry. His hand shoots out to catch himself on the bed. He stares at Shiro, eyes wide. What? Shiro holds his gaze, silly, a small innocent smile on his face. We're going to the coffee shop, and I'm going to meet Lance. Keith's brows pinch. Lips pursing into a small frown as he straightens. Go. By yourself. You're coming with me. You need to get out of your apartment and learn how to be normal around him anyway. The sooner you face it and accept it, the sooner you can move on. Keith glares at him. He knows Shiro well enough to know he's fighting a losing battle. Still, he can't help but try. You said you wouldn't push me. I know, but I think you need a little push right about now. He might not even be working. Shiro shrugs, sitting back on a couch and making a show of getting comfortable. If he's not, then you'll have nothing to worry about. He glares at him, but Shiro just stares back sadly. I'm not getting out of this, am I? Nope, he says, sounding way too happy about it. I'll drag you there kicking and screaming, if I have to. Keith sighs and shuffles over to his dresser to dig out a pair of clean black jeans and a clean shirt. Shiro watches him with a raised eyebrow as he heads across the room. Where are you going? To take a shower. Shiro snickers, and Keith slaps the back of his head as he passes. Shut up. I can see where that thing's going, and he hasn't been talking around a couple of days, and he didn't paint. Lance is worried about Keith, and Lance is worried about his soulmate, and there's all to it, just sitting on the couch, wearing nothing but just a hoodie, and that's it. And then Shiro shows up, and he's trying to motivate Keith to just be normal again, trying to meet Lance, because they're gonna go to the coffee shop where Lance is working, and Shiro really wants to meet Lance, because, I mean, he's a really, really good person. But Shiro hadn't met Lance yet in this story, because, he's older. According to the wiki, according to the fandom, he's 25 years old. Well, probably older than that, because he's in 20s, okay? So you probably know who and where to meet Lance, because Shiro was so excited to meet Lance at the coffee shop. Okay, now let's just continue on, and feel like try to move it up and one Keith to just be with Lance as soon as possible. And the way that Shiro said, the sooner you face it and accept it, the sooner you can move on. Yeah, try to be a normal person. Try to be just normal person without being a couch potato and just sitting around and just be a loner. Try to do it by yourself, and well, we'll see about this. Lance, Hunk says, sign your post. I know I just clean the floors and everything, but I really don't think you should be lying on them. Lance only replied as a wordless grunt. Come now, Hunk. Think of it as an obstacle course. Francis, making a show of stepping over Lance's sprawling lips. Step over a leg here, and no arm there. I don't have no arms. And voila, he says, sliding a pan of donuts into the oven and closing the door with a bang. No problem, he says, stroking his mustache. Ooh, but what if I step on him? Oh man. Oh, Lance. I'm sorry if I step you, dude, Honk says, scurrying along the edges of the kitchen to avoid stepping on him. To be fair, Lance is lying in the middle of the floor. It's pretty hard to avoid him. He lifts his head, shooting Honk twin-finger guns in a wink. You can step me by any day, big guy. I really rather not. Besides, weren't you wallowing? Oh, right. And then he flops back down with a long, drawn-out groan. Lance! Allura calls off in the front. She doesn't sound upset. If anything, the reprimand is only half-hearted and distracted. He supposes that's fair. She does it loud. Stop distracting Hunk and Koran. I'm wallowing, Allura. Come wallow while you clean the lobby. Why don't you clean the lobby? I'm manning the register. We have no customers. I'm your boss. Lance snorts, but rolls onto his stomach anyway, pushing himself to his feet. Oh, sure. Use the boss card. He grumbles loud enough to be heard as he trudges out from the kitchen. Sure enough, they have no customers. There are a few people sitting out on the patio, but the inside of the shop is dead. And sure enough, Allura is sitting at the stool she pulled up behind the register, Haley working a crossword puzzle on the back of the local newspaper. She doesn't look up as he passes by her. I hope you know I'm only doing this because I love you. She snorts a short laugh. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I pay you. Not at all. He drags his feet around the stop, picking up stray napkins and other garbage, tossing them in the trash. He sets to work wiping the tables and straightening chairs. He's working at half speed, and he knows it. He also doesn't care. He gets to the donut display case and starts wiping the outside down, right in the glass of all the fingerprints from customers leaning against it and pointing at their choices. What was the name of the Land's Princess persona? Allura asks without looking up. Allie, he says, without hesitation, and she nods before scribbling it down. She manages to hum a few bars of the Prince Allie song before he's just not feeling it anymore. With a heavy sigh, he flops forward, resting his whole body against the display case. Face pressed against the curved top, arms hanging loosely at his sides. Allura sighs, resting an elbow on the counter and propping her chin up her knuckles, and she looks at him. All right, I'll bite. What's wrong? That's all the opening he needs. Having a soulmate is hard. Her face immediately softens. What happened? I thought you two were finally starting to talk more. We did that once, and I thought maybe it was going to be a regular thing, but... He tilts her head slightly, and her smile is soft and pitying, but not the kind that makes him feel looked down on. It's kind of pity he gets when his friends honestly care about him, but aren't sure how to help. It'll be alright, Lance. You just can't rush these sort of things. I'm sure they'll come around. Hope so, he mumbles, eyes drifting down to look through the glass into the display case. If he's extra pitiful, maybe Allura will let him have a donut. It's more than that, isn't it? He glances back at her. She nods toward him. I saw you writing on your arm earlier. They're not responding to you more direct messages. Yeah, but what else new? He grumbles, brow pinching. Her smile widens just a fraction. Well, I think it's understandable that they don't respond to your daily pickup lines. I'm sure after a couple of years, that gets old. Lance gasped, pushing himself off the display case. Excuse? For your information, my pickup lines are the best, and I know my soulmate appreciates them. Besides, I've been doing it for so long, it's just part of our thing, Alora. It's our thing. Mm-hmm, she hums, still smiling. It dies down a fraction after a moment. What you say to them? You don't mind me asking? He sighs, turning around to lean his back against the display case. Right hand going to idly rub his left arm where the words are. He stares at the tiles of the floor, eyes idly tracing the patterns between them. I, uh, I just asked if they were alright, and let them know I was here. You know, they need me. That sounds really sweet of you, Lance, Allura says, voice all soft and kind, which simultaneously makes him feel better and worse. All of his friends know about his soulmate situation. He talks about them too much for them not to. But that doesn't stop him from feeling a little self-conscious about the whole thing. Yeah, he loves his soulmate's paintings, and he'll show them off to anyone who'll listen. But when it comes to right down to it, he's not as close to his SM as the artists are to theirs, and he can't help but feel a little jealous. And that just makes him feel worse because he loves his SM. He really does. They're perfect for him, but yeah, it can be a little hard sometimes. I'm sure they appreciated it, she continues, even if they don't say anything. I hope so. He continues to rub his arm, like he can somehow reach the reader connection if he touches it enough. He knows he can't, but, doesn't stop him from trying. The longer he goes without a reply, the more he starts to worry that maybe, just maybe, he crossed the line. He's given his SM space for years, and even where he's gone in a while without receiving any remarks, he just silently stewed in his worry. He just thought that now that they have had their bonding moment, maybe that wall was starting to break down. That maybe it's okay for him to ask him more direct questions. Like maybe it's okay for him to start reaching out. Now that he's starting to worry that he had been wrong. The last thing he wants to do is scare his SM away. I'm worried about them, he says, forcing his hand away from the words on his arm and running his fingers through his hair. Have they given you reason to worry? She asked, sounding surprised and curious. They haven't painted or drawn anything in 2 weeks, Alora. Haven't they gone a while without drawing before? Well, yeah, but it never this long, and I don't know. This feels different. He hasn't gotten anything from his son since the space painting on his shoulder and neck. It's unusual. He usually at least gets some sort of doodle. He's been thinking back to that galaxy painting, trying to remember and analyze the emotions that have filtered through them, looking for some sort of clue as to what might be wrong. He remembers feeling anxiousness squeeze at his heart, and nervousness gnaw in his gut, but also excitement buzzing through his veins. Nothing about that was particularly bad. He just wants to know what happened, and while he knows that, logically, it can't have anything to do with him, because he didn't do anything. But he can't help but wonder if it's somehow his fault. I want to know they're okay. I'm sure they are, Lance. No use of getting yourself worked up over nothing. They'll come around in their own time. He looks at her then, a small smile on his lips. Thanks, Laura. Anytime, Lance. He then throws himself toward the counter and lying his torso across it, arms stretched out to dangle off the other side. Now, tell me about your soulmate. His head is tilted out to look at her, So sees the moment after her soft smile drops, her eyes widen, and her cheeks start to darken. She blinks, clearing her throat and tucking the newspaper out from under him. His head is tilted up to look at her. So sees the moment her soft smile drops, her eyes widen, and her cheeks start to darken. She blinks, clearing her throat and tucking the newspaper out from under him. "What about him?" she says, trying to fake nonchalance, but Lance can practically see her heartbeat speed up, like it always does when her SM is brought up. Honestly, if Hunk is the front runner for cutest blush when his soulmate is brought up, Allura's close second. Lance grins. "Allura!" He draws out her name, lifting his head and flopping his hands at her, lightly slapping her arm. She leans away from him, setting the newspaper on the other side of the register and smoothing it out. "Come on! I'm sad. Tell me about your soulmate to cheer me up. Let me live vicariously through you." She huffs, brows pinched slightly, and lips tugging downward. It doesn't do much to hide her blush too. "I don't know why hearing about him would cheer you up," she grumbles. "Because you guys are the sweetest." She rolls her eyes. "Lance, that's a bit of an exaggeration, don't you think?" No," he says, resting an eyebrow on the counter and propping his cheek up against his hand. He's still bent over the counter, stretched out and waggling his eyebrow at her. "Allura, you're left-handed, and you taught yourself how to write with your right hand for him." She steps a little. "So, anyone would have done the same." Lance chuckles. "Well, yeah, but I've seen you write with your right hand. Your handwriting is terrible, but he still sends you patient words and little hearts." She's definitely blushing now, lips pursed slightly as she keeps her eyes fixed on a crossword puzzle in front of her. Lance had known Allura when the accident had happened. He'd still been in high school, but he's heard about it. He asked a couple of years ago when he noticed she was writing on her left arm in a barely legible handwriting instead of just using her dominant hand. She had been 20 at the time her soulmate lost his right arm in a car accident. Even at the time, they were close. She spent weeks trying to figure out why he wasn't responding to her messages, and when he did, he was acting severely reserved. It took him a while to tell her about the accident and admit that he had lost his right arm. He said he was ashamed and embarrassed about it, as if it might make her change her mind about him. She scolded him for that, for keeping it a secret and making her believe there was something wrong with their connection. And when her remarks didn't go through, she immediately started teaching herself to write with her right hand. It's been 5 years since then, and she's gotten a lot faster with it, but her handwriting is still terrible. Her SM never seems scared though, and Lance's heart aches just thinking about it. "He doesn't always send me hearts," she mumbles, tapping her pen on the counter. "He loves you," he sings, and he gets the pleasure of seeing a wonderful mix of mortification and embarrassment on her beautiful features. "Lance! Come on, Allura. You guys are like goals." "I don't know what you think, Dad." Lance props himself up on both elbows so he can count off on his fingers. 1. You guys support each other all the time. 2. You're super sweet. 3. You send each other recipes to try every weekend, like you're making dinner together or something. It's adorable. 4. He writes good morning to you every day. 5. He calls you a princess. 6. "Oh, right, I get it," she says, swatting his hands, lips first and brows pinched in adorable embarrassment. Lance laughs, straight off the counter so she can't reach him. 6. You both agree to meet each other naturally because it's romantic, but you have that adorable little agreement. His lips curve into a wicked grin as her blush reaches her ears. "What is it again?" he coos. Every time he comes to the coffee shop, he orders your recommended drink of the month, like an adorable little code word so you know it's him. "What in this month, princess? She rolls up her newspaper, stands up, and reaches across the counter to swat at him. He laughs, deads away from her reach. It's none of your business, she snaps, face flaming. It's a marble mocha macchiato, I believe. Francis, pushing to the kitchen doors with his back and a tray full of fresh donuts in his hands. Brilliant alliteration on my part, if I do say so myself. Corinne, Laura shouts, spinning on her heel and glaring at the man, though he notes it looks a little more like a pout. Corinne stops mid-step, blinking at her before his gaze slides to Lance, then back again. Was I supposed to say that? You asked me to help you come up with something for this month. It's private, she tries again, but it sounds like defeated whine. I like to point out that when it comes to your secret soulmate special orders, they're not really secret, Hawk says, poking his head out of the kitchen door. You always tell us to keep an eye out for those specific orders. Ola just groans, sits back down, and puts her head to the counter. Don't you all have jobs to do? As your friends, it's our job to make sure you're properly embarrassed when we tease you about your soulmate, Lance says, grinning wildly as he crosses his arms over his chest. Corinne hums thoughtfully as he bends down to restock the display case. He has the point. It's alright, Allura, Hawk says, stepping up behind her to put a hand on her shoulder. He teases me all the time about mine. He tilts her head to look up at him, a small smile on her face. Thanks, Honk. He nods. Anytime. Then he smiles. By the way, Lance forgot to mention how he does your eyeliner for you most days, which is, might I add, incredible and adorable. Lance sniffers. Oh, right. That is always on point. Ella groans again, rolling her forehead back and forth on the countertop, which is only drowned out by their laughter. They're interrupted, however, by a jiggling of the chimes as the door opens. They all turn together. Laura lifted her head up at the counter, and Corinne popping up from behind the display case. Keith is standing in the doorway to the coffee shop, wearing a hoodie that swallows him despite the fact that it's pretty warm outside today. His hair looks like it's wet, and it's pulled back into a loose ponytail. He's not looking at any of them. His lips are pursed into a small frown, brows pinched, and eyes on the floor across the room. It's oddly adorable and strangely endearing. Something briefly flutters in Lance's chest, and he blames it on the fact that he hasn't seen Keith in a few days. If he's being honest, he's been a little worried about the guy. He's been off for a few days, or more accurately, a little over a week. Lance noticed it, but he didn't think it was any of his business until his worries got the better of him, and it seemed like Keith was avoiding him. His conversation with Keith eased his mind, but he was still worried about him. He's Pitch's best friend after all, and Lance likes to think his new friend. But despite looking like a cat that was just dragged out of a nap, Keith looks good. For a moment, Lance is too overwhelmed with Keith to notice the guy standing next to him, but then he does, and he kind of wonders how he didn't see him to begin with. Yeah, Keith might be endearing with the whole disgruntled puppy look, but this guy is fucking gorgeous, and a scar across his face and a white stock of hair at the front of his head do nothing to detract from it. If anything, they give his handsome, rugged look, and he's built, practical dwarfing Keith next to him. And to top it all off, he has the brightest, warmest smile on his face Lance thinks he's ever seen. Hey, Keith, Honk says, breaking the brief silence. He lifts a hand in greeting as Keith looks up. His frown eases a little bit into a small smile. Hey, Honk. Keith, how are you today? Corinne says, grinning from ear to ear as he slides the donut case door shut. Fine. Good. The guy next to Keith nudges him lightly with an elbow, and Keith shouts back to him. Thanks for asking. Two of them step into the shop and the door swings shut behind them. "Hey, Keith," Lance says, grinning brightly as he leans back against the counter, arms crossed over his chest. "Good to see you're okay." Keith glances at him, but his gaze flits away quickly before he mutters, "Hey, Lance." And he glances up in time for him and the other guy to share a look. And yeah, okay, that's weird, but whatever. When he looks back at a glance, his brows are pinched and a small smile on his lips. He looks incredibly confused and just a little wary. "Why wouldn't I be okay?" They come to a stop in front of Lance and in front of the register. Lance shrugs, smiling at him. "You haven't been around for a couple days, so I assume you were sick or something. Good to see you're feeling better." Yeah, thanks," he mumbles, looking away. Lance tries not to let that get to him. He and Keith are fine. New friends just get awkward sometimes. It's not to be worried about. But speaking of fine, so, who's this?" he asks, looking to the new guy and giving him a warning smile. Keith glances up at his companion, and something silent exchange between them before Keith's gaze glances between the rest of them. Guys, this is my brother, Takashi." The man's smile disappears for a second as he sends a small scout at Keith before putting a hand on his head and roughly ruffling his hair. Keith ducks his head and steps away, glaring at him as he attempts to smooth his hair back down. "Please, call me Shiro," he says, smiling again as he looks between them all. "Keith told me a lot about you guys and Quidditch." "Has he?" Laura says, sitting up straight on her stool and brightening. Her eyes shift between the two of them, smiling brightly. I'll take that as a sign that he's having fun," she says, and Keith crosses his arms over his chest, pouting. "He's a brilliant addition to the team," Coran says, holding the empty tray behind him as he reaches over the counter with his other hand. "Name's Coran." Shiro wastes no time taking his hand, and in the process, Lance notices the gleam of metal from the guy's prosthetic arm. Huh, he hadn't even noticed. He had assumed it was some sort of a soul mark painting. "I'm Hunk," he says, lifting a hand in greeting. "Allura," she says, smiling. But then it's Lance's turn. He slides forward a step, holding out a hand. "Name's Lance," he says, holding Shiro's hand a little longer than necessary as he looks at the hand, tilts his head, and gives him his best charming smile. "But you can call me any time," he adds with a wink. Everyone groans. Keith looks mortified because he slaps a hand over his face, and Lance lets go of Shiro's hand, throwing back his head and laughing. "Oh, please ignore him. He does this far too often," Laura says, sounding exasperated and far too tired. He spins on his heel, shooting her an instant smile. "Only to pretty people," she gives a flat stare, one eyebrow raising slowly. "Once." Yeah? Go clean the bathrooms. But Allura, now." He throws up his hands and stumps away, ignoring the unreadable look on Keith's face when he catches him watching. He doesn't go far though, instead stopping at the station where customers can add things to their coffee. It takes a moment to clean and organize everything, checking the milk levels, swapping up spilled sugar, organizing the straws, restocking napkins. He really doesn't want to go to clean the bathrooms, and he's kind of hoping if he puts it off long enough, Allura will forget she asked him to. Coran and Hunk disappear back into the kitchen, and Allura sighs again before turning back to the two of them. "So, what can we get for the two of you?" Keith shifts from foot to foot, glancing up at the menu, frowning, then gives a one-shoulder shrug. "Just me and drip coffee." Laura taps the screen and pulls out a cup that she pushes across the counter to him. "And will this be together, or—" "I'll be paying for us both," Shiro says, patting Keith's shoulder. Keith mutters what Lance thinks might have been a thanks, and takes his cup before ducking out of his brother's reach. He charges over to where the coffee urns are, which is right next to where Lance is procrastinating. He leans a hip against the counter, crossing his arms over his chest, grinning at him. I can't believe you hit on my brother, he grumbles as he looks over the coffee options. Lance just shrugs. It's all in good fun. Everyone knows I don't mean it. Keith still looks disgruntled though, and still won't look at him. So Lance leans over, nudging Keith's shoulder with his own. What's the matter, Keith? Want me to hit on you instead? Keith's head whips around to gape at him, eyes wide and a little panicked. It's cute. Lance's grin just widens, eyebrows waggling. What? He sputters, and Lance feels a sense of pride, but he doesn't think he's ever seen Mr. Stoic and broody this undone. No. Lance laughs, nudging him again, and not at all deterred by Keith's scowl. Keith, buddy, chill. I'm messing with you. He chuckles and reaches out a hand, tapping the middle urn. By the way, I recommend this one. It's the most popular one we have. Keith blinks, following his gesture and reading the name of the coffee. He looks a little thrown by the sudden topic change. Thanks? Lance just shrugs. No problem, and finds a little satisfaction when Keith takes his suggestion. I'll have a Shutrazop, and Lance looks up curiously to see his face scrunched up in the font. Hold on. I have it written down somewhere. He pulls out his phone, taps the screen a few times, and then reads off it. A marbled mocha macchiato. Lance freezes, breath hitching his throat. He thinks his mouth might have dropped open, but he's not entirely sure. His eyes snap to Lyra. She's staring at Shiro, back straight, eyes wide, lips parted. She looks as completely shell-shocked as he feels, but he knows it has to be 10 times stronger for her. If she wasn't already sitting down, he would rush behind the counter in fear of her falling over. Instead, he just freezes, watching everything from a distance. He can barely breathe, and his patient threatens to strangle him as he suddenly urges Laura to pull herself together and say the next part of a planned exchange. She's told him about it before. She gives her soulmate a new drink to her every month at whatever coffee shops he goes to on the playful offhanded chance that he'll walk into hers. If she hears the drink order, she's supposed to say, Would... Her voice is so soft, she can barely hear her, and he ends up leaning for a little bit subconsciously. She clears her throat, sits up straighter, tucks a stray strand of hair behind her hair in a way she does when she's nervous, looks up at him through her lashes in a shy way that Lance is not used to seeing on her. Would you like some Junie berries with that? He can hear her voice shaking just slightly, a hesitance that she tries to cover up. She's done this before, when people order her chosen drink of the month, and she's always been disappointed. But Shiro is gawking at her now, and his head having shot far too quickly. His eyes are wide, and his mouth is definitely hanging open. And Lance would have to be blind to miss the bright red that's coloring his cheeks, making his scars stand out. Oh man, he breathes. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. He grabs Keith's sleeve, tugging it in excitement. Keith glares at his hand, setting down his coffee cup before he spills it everywhere. Lance, what are you? He cuts himself off when he gets a look at Lance's face. Lance wastes no time, grabbing his shoulder and spinning him around. Dude, look! He leans forward to hiss on Keith's ear, barely able to keep his voice down in excitement. Oh man, he's never witnessed a first meeting before, let alone one with his friends, let alone literally most beautiful woman he's ever seen meeting her soulmate. Who's the most beautiful man he's ever seen? Shoes blinks once, twice. His mouth opens and closes. His strangled whine comes out like he's trying to talk, but nothing is working properly. Then his phone slips from his grip, and he has to break his gaze away as he fumbles to catch it. When he straightens, when he clears his throat, and are those flowers? Lance is bouncing on the balls of his feet, chest fluttering with excitement, as he watches as they stare at each other, slowly, so slowly that it's like watching the sunrise or fog dissipate. They smile at each other, small, shy smiles, then reach their smiles, and doors of the kitchen slams open, bounces off the doorstop, and slams back to Coran, who was in the middle of stepping through the doorway. There is a muffled curse as he stumbles back into the kitchen, but the suddenness of it is enough to catch everyone's attention. They all turn to stare at the door as it slams open again. Crunch and Allura! Holy Quiznak! Coran, that's not a word. You can hear Hunk shout from the kitchen. It was when we made it up at the tender age of 12. And it's applicable now, Coran shouts, then points over the counter to Shiro. Allura, did I hear correctly? Is this... Allura giggles, and she looks startled by it because she slaps a hand over her mouth to hide her smile. Her cheeks are stained dark pink. I think he might be... Yes. She looks back at Shiro, shining taken over again, and it's such a strange yet endearing look on her. And God, he's so happy for her. Shiro smiles then, a small smile that radiates warmth. He stares at her like they're the only ones in the room. And when he speaks, his voice is low, soft, and filled with such tender fondness that feels like he's trudging on a private moment. It's finally to meet you, Princess. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Lance asks, leaning forward to whisper into Keith's ear. He jumps and turns, staring at Lance with wide, surprised eyes. Lance spares him an amused smile before turning his attention back to the others. He nods toward them. Seeing a first meeting like this? Kinda awesome, right? Keith turns away, shuffling a few inches away from him and crossing his arms over his chest. I kinda feel like I'm intruding, he mumbles. Lance chuckles softly. Yeah, me too, but it's kinda a magical moment, and I'm glad I got to see it. There's a familiar warm feeling in his chest. It's the same feeling he gets when he hears his parents talk about how they met. The same feeling he got when his siblings met their soulmates. It's an overwhelming fondness for his friends, his family, for a soulmate, for love. It's tinged with a bitter sadness and desire to have that for himself. He wants it desperately so, but he knows he has to wait, and he knows his soulmate will be worth the wait. He's happy for them. He really is. He feels giddy right down to his bones. But there is an ache there, too. An ache and a need to have what they have. To meet his own special person and have his own fairy tale. I hope when I meet my soulmate, they'll look at me the way your brother is looking at Allura, he says softly, wistful and mostly to himself. Then there's suddenly a movement as Keith turns to grab his coffee cup and shoves the lid on it. Mid steps away. His face is scrunched up and scowling, but it's less disgruntled than it was earlier. More. Just more. Like there was a war going on behind the scenes that Lance can't quite figure out. So he's also turning his face away to hide his conflicted expression for Lance. Without thinking, his hand shot out and he grabs Keith's arm. Hey, where are you going? Keith faces for a moment, then glances over his shoulder at Lance. His face is carefully blank, but there's something in his eyes, and a small frown on his lips. Lance's brows furrow, lips pursing to a thin line. Seriously, dude, you alright? Yeah, He cuts himself off, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. I'm fine. I just need to work on some things. He opens his eyes, and when he does, it's like he's a completely different person. His eyes are clearer, sharper, his face more relaxed, lips set into a determined line. When Shiro snaps out of his trance, tell him I went to work in the studio, okay? And before Lance can respond, Keith has pulled out from his grip and slipped out the front door. Lance watches him walk away through the windows, brows pinched in confusion and worry. He doesn't really have time to dwell on it, however, because Coran is currently in the process of silently interviewing Shiro, and Lance needs to run interference. He manages to push Crane back to the kitchen with Hunk's help and convinces Lily to take a break to talk with Shiro while he covers the register. It doesn't take much to convince her. She looks starstruck, dazed, and it just takes a gentle nudge and reassurances that he'll be fine. She ends up taking off the rest of her shift, and Lance can't say that he blames her. Besides, he's got everything covered. It's a weekday, so they're not particularly busy, and Cran helps him when they have a brief rush later that evening. It's not a bad day, but he's still feeling drained by the time his shift is over. He and Hunk walk back to their dorm together, excited and animatedly talking about Allura and Shiro. When they get back, Hunk gathers up his things before ducking out to go meet Pitch at the library. He asks Lance if he wants to come, but he declines. Hunk gives him a look and tells him to make sure he does his homework, but Lance just smiles and waves him off. Once he's alone, he collapses on his bed, one leg hanging off it and one arm thrown over his stomach, while the other lies on the pillow above his head. He stares at the ceiling and heaves a heavy sigh. With all the happiness and excitement surrounding Allura's first meeting, he had nearly forgotten his current struggle with his own soulmate. Now it just weighs heavier on his heart. He had never responded to him, and he still has no idea if they're okay. They probably are. He's probably just overreacting, but he wishes they were closer. He wishes they had secret code words for their first meeting and little inside jokes. He turns his head, eyes roam over the pictures tapped to his wall. There's dozens of them, covering up all the available space on the wall next to his bed. They're all different sizes, some of them with smudges in the glossy finish from when he touched them too often. Each one's a different picture of one of his soulmate's paintings. He takes pictures in all of them and prints all of them out, but his favorites make it to his wall. His walls back home were a lot more covered, but he has limited space here in his dorm, so he had to make some cuts. The rest of his pictures are in photo albums, stacked in a tub and shoved under his bed. He reaches a hand up, touching the closest ones. He has pictures here spanning over several years. The most recent addition is a galaxy painting on his neck. It's the last thing he's gotten from them. The last time he heard from them. He really hopes they're alright. He closes his eyes, letting his arm fall over his face, and takes several deep breaths. He doesn't like being jealous of other people's soulmates. He knows his soulmate is perfect for him. He loves his soulmate. It's just hard when he can't express it. And it's hard when he sees what other people have. He knows he'll get there eventually. It's just hard. But he'll get through this. He always does. He tilts his arm back, peering out of the wall with his paintings again. His eyes immediately find the most recent galaxy, and a small smile finds its way to his lips. One day, Space Cadet. One day. He's not sure how long he's been dozing when he feels it, but he's deep enough to sleep at that first. He thinks it's a dream, but the signal continues. Foreign emotions filtering and flitting through his chest, slowly drawing them back to consciousness. He blinks back asleep, feeling drowsy and disoriented, trying to figure out what the hell is going on, why he feels so strange. Then the realization hits him all at once, and he sits up straight, making himself dizzy in the process. Eyes wide, lips parted, and lips up his arm. There are colors there, spreading out across his skin in smooth strokes from an invisible brush. His lips curve then, forming a smile so wide his cheeks are ache, but he doesn't care. His soulmate is painting. Again! His flash of excitement is immediately dampened by the somber feelings swelling in his chest. They're not strong or passionate in their negativity, nor can he really call it sorrow. They're just somber, hollow, sad, and distressed in such a way that almost feels numb. There's no sharpness, no heat. It feels thoughtful, introspective, which is all he saw him that when he doesn't know the thoughts that are there to cause the emotions. It sombers him up real quick, and he lays back on his bed, holding his arm above his head to watch his soulmate work. At first, he thinks that maybe the painting is fire again. But no, it's not. If he's learned anything, is that his soulmate is usually painting something that mirrors their state of mind. And fire definitely doesn't fit them right now. No, the colors are the same, yellows and oranges, but it's not fire. As he watches, he tries to sort through the emotions filling his chest, but despite the lack of intensity, they're still chaotic. They swirl and clash, feeling heavy and choking, but when he reaches for them, they shy away, slipping through his fingers like smoke. A chaos, but a calm chaos, where nothing sticks and nothing makes sense. And beneath it all, a constant that Lance can't quite shake, so subtle at that first he hadn't noticed it at all. It's self-hatred. It's so familiar, but he hasn't felt that from his soulmate in years. It twists his heart in a bone-deep ache as a frown finds its way to his lips. He wants to hold them. He wants to tell them it'll be okay. He wants them to know that he's here. But right now, all he can do is sit and watch and witness a silent support that his essence will know is there. He's always been here. He will always be. The colors spread, bright yellows, burnt oranges, fading to shades of reds and purples. There's no defining shapes, but the center is yellow and the colors spread out from it. There's undefinable blurs that obscure and reflect, catching the colors spread around his arm. When his arm is nearly completely covered, he knows it's coming to an end. He doesn't want it to end. He doesn't want their connection to fade. He wants to cling to it and treasure it, but he knows it'll come again. It always fades, and it always comes again. His soulmate will always continue to paint. As long as they're both alive, they'll be connected. Then something shifts in a foreign feeling in his chest. It's subtle at first, but grows stronger. A balm spread out and soothing negativity buzzing in its limbs. Where it touches, the storm quells, the shifting storm clouds dissipating and calming. It's slow, oozing out and leaving a tired, weary, somber contentment in its wake. And from that stillness rises strength, a determination that he knows and loves. It's not strong or loud as it usually, but it's there. It's a desire to persevere, and something he felt many times before through their soul connection, and one that he admires. Lance tries to find a name for the calming feeling, but when he does, he can't quite shake it. Acceptance. The tingling stops and their connection fades, the foreign emotion slipping from him until he's left feeling oddly empty and hollow. He sits up, looking down at his arm to admire their work. He hasn't noticed the shifting and lighting in his room, but it seems oddly familiar. He lifts his head, eyes going to the window, feeling like he's being tugged forward. He gets to his feet and shuffles across the room, reaching out to pull the blinds. Outside his dorm window, he has a fantastic view of the sunset. He stares at it a moment, then lifts his arm. The collar smash almost exactly, and his breath catches. He sees it now. A sunset cloud catching and shifting the coloring. The sun bright at the center. A small ghost of a smile tucks the corners of his lips as he looks out the window. He wonders if his soulmate is looking at the same sunset, and a familiar warmth fills his chest. One day, Space Cadet.
Hey, sorry about ditching you like that. I wasn't. That was unexpected. But, God, Keith, she's perfect. She's amazing. I can't believe she's mine. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that. Anyway, how you doing? Are you okay? No, but I'm getting there. I'm glad. I'm here if you need me, little bro. Thanks. And Shiro? Yeah? I'm happy for you, really. Alora's great. Thanks, Keith. She is. But I've known that for years.
Wow. I felt like there's a connection to it, and the emotions of it, and their feelings, their soulmates. And that's what it defines where they are, and staring at the sunset, all the colors of oranges and yellows and the little fades of red and purple. And that's what describes the sunset, staring at the sunset. And my god, this is emotion. Again, this chapter has some emotional stuff, and I cannot. I'm going to cry for this. For me, I'm going to cry. Don't you see? I'm literally almost crying when I was reading this, and that's not like not serious, but I'm gonna cry. I'm crying for this. I mean, songs are meant to be together, and once Kate started painting, Lance felt the body, felt that senses right there, around his arm, around his neck. I mean, it's pretty amazing that how this chapter is gonna go, but oh my god, this is really emotional. And oh man, yeah, the soulmate is kind of a more depths of it, something that's meant to be together. And the first time that Shira and Laura are meant to be together, it's now their soulmates. That flashes off my mind, and oh my god, they were talking to each other, and it's helped out, and that kind of helps out with Lance and Keith as their soulmates, their own soulmates, and trying their best to work their way out and just getting over it. Kind of love this chapter, and hopefully the next chapter would be more opening for whatever's going to be. Okay, guys, man, this is a very emotional chapter that I've read. Oh, quite very emotional. Okay, now I kind of see where this goes, but I'm happy. Okay, guys, that is the end of this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe